It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. Later in the hour, Talk of Iowa Summer School continues. Today, we are going to learn how Alex Grapp of Ames High School turns his students into readers. But first, the Africa Live Network, based in Des Moines, distributes high-quality content by and for Africans, connecting Africans living around the world. When ALN announced the first Iowa African Film Festival, the response was overwhelming. They received hundreds of films from more than 54 different countries. The film festival is August 6th through the 8th in Des Moines. The finalists will screen over 3 days, along with workshops, panels, and it will culminate in an African cultural festival on the 8th. In a few minutes, we are going to learn more about Africa Live Network, but we're going to start with this brand new festival. And Jack Chimbetete is here. He is founder of the Africa Live Network and the film festival. He's also a filmmaker himself. Hello, Jack.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And I also have with me the colleague Omar, who's also going to be in charge of the Motherland Festival on the 8th.
Omar is with you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we will bring him into the conversation shortly. But Jack, I want to start with you. How did you get the idea for the film festival?
So, coming to Iowa, I had a lot of people asking me questions about Africa, right? What really goes on in Africa. We really don't have a lot of exposure to some of the stories, some of the countries. And me being a filmmaker myself and having, experience telling stories, either Iowan stories and African stories, I thought it's a good opportunity to give everybody else a chance to learn, engage, see what happens in Africa, and also experience. So the whole idea was just sharing culture, sharing knowledge, and making it easy for people to answer some of these questions like, hey, tell me a bit about Nigeria, tell me a bit about Nollywood, and all those exciting things that everybody talks about. And some people want to travel to Africa, but they don't know exactly where to. So when you kind of experience some of these films and documentaries, you get a real feel of, oh, wow, this is what we're missing.
Right. Well, and you mentioned Nollywood. I think for people who don't know anything about African film, that's probably the only thing that they do know. But give me an idea of really the richness of the African film culture. Obviously, Africa is a very big continent with a lot of cultures and a lot of countries.
Like you mentioned, you're talking about 54 countries, multiple cultures. Within the 54 countries, you've got thousands of cultures that are in there. So when people think about Africa, especially here in the U.S., people think about it as one country. No. There's a lot of things going on. So like I'm from Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, in particular. And we speak a language called Shona, which is a derivative of Swahili. In the olden times, the people traveled from Tanganyika, to Southern Africa, settled in Zimbabwe, and developed their own culture. And within our own country, we have about maybe 25 other languages. So what happens is every country has its own type of culture, type of dress. We have our own way of making food. I think one of the most popular foods that everybody, at least has an idea of is jollof rice. There are multiple versions of jollof rice all across Africa. There's Nigerian jollof rice. There's Ghanaian jollof rice. Liberians always claim that they make the best jollof rice, but it's very arguable if you tell me. That's a debate that will never end.
Right.
But in Zimbabwe, we've developed our own version just so that we get into the mix. So there's just so many things around culture that are so unique, so different, and there's so many stories that have never been told. So you mentioned Nollywood. Nollywood has been very successful in bringing out a lot of Nigerian films because it's a really big country, and they've been really aggressive with, we want to tell our story. But that's not the only part of Africa. So when people, watch Nollywood films, they conclude, okay, so this is how Africans behave. This is how they speak and all of that, but they're missing 53 other cultures. So this was an opportunity for us to say, let's explore together what everything else looks like. And it's so unique and it's so different.
So when you announced the Iowa African Film Festival, as I've mentioned, I mean, the response was overwhelming. Were you expecting that?
Not at all. Honestly, we thought this is the first year, we're talking about Iowa. Probably it's going to be very quiet. Maybe we'll have like 20, 30 submissions. We'll choose a few out of that. We'll start small, very intimate gathering. In the first 3 days of opening up submissions, we had hundreds of films coming in. We thought, okay, maybe this is going to end day 2, day 3, day 4. Day 5, we're at 500, and we put a cap to it. Okay, if we continue this, we're going to get thousands and thousands of films.
And you'll never be able to sift through them, right?
Exactly. So we actually had to figure out a way to sift through the 500, to say, do they have any African context? Because these are films not only from Africa, but from all over the world, done by Africans with an African concept, whatever it is that looks like. So we had to start putting it in categories and say, okay, our theme this year is, shifting the narrative. So is anything going, with our theme? And then we actually found that a lot of the films, at least 50% of the films that are finalists, because we only managed to finalize 30 films that are going to be screened within the 2 days, Thursday and Friday, 6 and 7. So we said, okay, these are going to be the films that are kind of like the top 30. We first drilled it to the top 50, and then we had to go a little strict and go down to the top 30. And funny enough, 50% of those films have something to do with mental health. So we're realizing that there's a real mental health conversation going on at a global scale, especially in Africa. And that's going to be a key part of our conversations and panels and workshops as we watch these films and reflect with people. So it's going to be a really open opportunity for any Iowan who's close to Drake University between the 6th and the 7th of August to just come in and just kind of learn and have these conversations, because they're really very important conversations that we're going to be having.
This is the first Iowa African Film Festival. You had this overwhelming response. Does that tell you that there's a pent-up demand for this kind of thing, not just in Iowa, but maybe all over the United States?
I think there is a demand. I think there are lots of questions. I think there's lots of interest. And I think there's also lots of talent. So there's a combination of factors, right? The people really want to share this story. And interestingly enough, they want to share this story with Iowans. Because I have traveled to a number of other African film festivals which are in the U.S. I've gone to the Silicon Valley African Film Festival. I know there's a New York African Film Festival. And there's about 2 others. So in total, maybe we're talking about 4. And this one becomes the 5th. But the popularity that we have gotten in a very short space of time, especially because it's new, does confirm that there's a lot of demand. It also confirms that there's a lot of excitement, because even if we're talking to people like you and a lot of people who are across the state, everybody's like, oh my goodness, how can we be part of this? What can we do to be, involved? How can we involve our students? Because we want, them to come and have an opportunity to learn about Africa. So there's a big opportunity to coordinate, to partner, to be involved together. And we're very open. We have our hands open right now to say we want to engage with people who want to, collaborate with us to support, to really make this bigger, because we want it to be an annual event.
So the films, the finalists of the films will screen on the 6th and 7th. There will also be panels. And then the 8th is the day for the African Cultural Festival, right?
Yes, correct.
All right. So that means we want to bring Omar Love into the conversation. The Motherland Experience takes place on August 8th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., celebrating African heritage, community, culture, and it's, of course, partnered with the festival. Omar Love is the founder and director of the Motherland Experience Festival. Hello, Omar.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for being here. And Omar, tell me about the festival. What can people expect?
Well, they should expect a vibrant exposure of culture, a lot of different food from different part of Africa, a lot of networking, a lot of exposure to nonprofit organization we have within our community, and that we need to share with the rest of Iowa and the rest of the world. And we'll have dancers there. We'll have a lot of dancing going on. We will have a lot of cultural activities, and we'll have a lot of learning booth there to educate our brothers and sisters of Iowa in regards to the different cultures we have there, and our up and coming entrepreneurs, and and basically how we can all come together to bridge our community and make it one.
So this is at Western Gateway Park, again, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Admission is free. It's open to the entire community. Omar, do you have a vision for who will come? Because there are so many Africans who are also Iowans who have immigrated in recent decades. Do you expect people to travel from around the state of Iowa to have the opportunity to be part of a festival like this?
Yes. Actually, there are a lot of people that are reaching out to us in regards to that. And surprisingly, with this being the first year, the interest and with this being the first year, we are getting a lot of interest and a lot of people are wanting to be a part of it. So, and we do have people coming from around Iowa to either be a vendor or to partake. So it is looking good. We are excited, and the people of Iowa are excited, and we are just looking forward to keep growing from there.
All right. Well, and this is exciting that these two things have come together. Jack, did you reach out to Omar? How did you make this connection?
Yeah, so initially we were having ideas of having an African festival, to conclude the film festival, because, as the board president of One Voice DSM, we are representing all the Africans combined. And then we found out that Omar had already made strides, and planning for the African festival. So, he reached out and we had a meeting, and our board was so excited that, we need to come together. This is a good demonstration that Africans are united, right? Instead of trying to do separate things, why can't we work together? So we decided to partner. We saw that there was a really good link in partnering with the film festival because it's about the African Film Festival, and then we ended with the experience. So if you look at it this way, between Thursday and Friday, Thursday evening is going to be the opening ceremony, just to give you a hint of what the program looks like. During the day on Thursday, we start at 2 o'clock with just some few entertainment and performances, and in the evening, we're going to have some, performances, and at 7 o'clock is the reception. So there's going to be so much happening, and then everything just kind of culminates into the event on the 8th.
All right, we'll talk more in just a moment. We are talking about the first Iowa African Film Festival put on by Africa Live Network, and also the very first Motherland Experience Festival. We'll talk more in a moment. This is Talk of Iowa. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. Coming up in 20 minutes, Talk of Iowa Summer School continues. We'll learn how Alex Grapp of Ames High School inspires his students to become real readers. Right now, we have been talking about the very first Iowa African Film Festival. It takes place on August 6th through the 8th in Des Moines. On the 6th and 7th, the finalist films from all over Africa and the world will be shown, along with workshops, panels, and then the whole event culminates on the 8th with the very first Motherland Experience Festival in Des Moines. That takes place at Western Gateway Park. It is free and open to the public, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., celebrating African heritage, community, culture. And again, it's partnered with the Iowa African Film Festival. With me this hour, Jack Chimbetete is the founder of the African Live Network and the Film Festival, and also with us is Omar Love. He is the founder of the Motherland Experience Festival. And Jack, I want to focus on Africa Live Network a little bit now, because I think that this is an important part of culture in Iowa that, again, a lot of people probably haven't heard of. When did you found Africa Live Network?
So technically, I founded it in 2018, but the whole process of building it into an MVP and everything took shape in about 2023, because I first came to the U.S. In 2018 through an exchange program, the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program, and that's where, I was placed at Drake University. That's where the relationship with Drake University started. And then I met a lot of very interesting people. I produced my very first documentary of the city of Des Moines, partnered with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. So when I was invited back and forth for screenings, I ended up meeting people like John John when he was alive. I was telling him my idea that, I'm trying to build a network that allows people to learn about African culture, to sign up, and right now it's free for anybody in Iowa to sign up and just kind of watch some films and get an exposure of what happens. So he was so excited. He said, I'm going to write you a check to kind of just get this thing started. So, with my relationship with John John and a lot of other partners, and I really felt Iowa was welcoming to set this up. So I came back and I set up an office in the studio here, and we really started to build the infrastructure. So in 2023 is when we built up, the first web app version of Africa Live Network, and we started, collecting films. The first part of the films were films I made myself, and I continue to make films because I'm really passionate about telling stories. And then we now are extending this open hand to really start pulling out films from all over the world, from Africans or from people with Africa at heart. So that was really the idea of how it came. And just like we were talking about the film festival itself, there's so much craving and hunger to learn more about Africa beyond what is already known. So that's what gives the opportunity for Africa Live and all its partners and everybody who really contributes to its growth, because they are seeing the bigger picture here. To say we've watched a lot of Hollywood, Bollywood, a little bit of Nollywood, but we really don't know what Zimbabwe is about. We really don't know what Namibia is about. We probably don't even have a lot of stories around Liberia. We only have a sad story about Rwanda, but there's so many good things happening right now, in countries like that. So what's really going on is the questions that people ask. So that really is what birthed Africa Live. And now we have a team of people who work, for Africa Live to produce films and do all of that. And my role really is just to play oversight and say, hey, what else can I do? So now with that space and partners that I have, like where I work with Cultural, I was like, let's really build something that can be sustainable. That's how we birthed it.
It's such an unlikely story that you moved from Zimbabwe to Iowa to found Africa Live. So when you think about it, why do you think Iowa was the place to start? I mean, obviously you had people who believed in you and who invested in you, and you had some experience here, but why Iowa?
If you didn't know this, let me just tell you something, Charity. Iowa is actually nice, and I think you've heard this.
I love
Iowa
it.
Nice. And it's like you said, it's the most unexpected thing. I did not even know how to pronounce Des Moines when I saw the invitation coming here, and I was like, why are they putting me in a place? I'm a filmmaker. I should be going to LA. I should be going to Chicago, or at least New York. But when I got here, the reception was amazing. The environment was just so good. And it's so enabling a place to do things, to build visions. It's so enabling a place to kind of create something unique. And for a storyteller like me, I just saw so many stories, right? There's everywhere I look, I'm seeing stories, and not just stories for the sake of stories, but stories that help build economic development, stories that help connect the dots, stories that help solve problems. And that's really what we focus on, right? So when I saw these opportunities, I was like, this is the best place to set up. So the transition for me wasn't as hard. It was really like, this is another place I could call home, so I really transitioned, really felt at home, really got involved, and that's how I even became, involved with One Voice DSM, because the community itself was the one that made me feel, there are people who are like me. There's a whole big African community here. How can I contribute to that? And then, when I joined the board, I immediately became vice president, and then a year later, as a board president, and we started, getting into schools, doing a lot of mentoring programs, doing business workshops, developing the community, and we said, as we do all of this, people should know the story. So I always go back to everything that happens in Iowa, all the cool things. A lot of people don't know about the cool things that happen in Iowa, and that's what has been pushing me to make more and more films around the state.
Well, speaking of that, we have a short excerpt from your documentary, 1500, the story of Manning. So let's just listen to the introduction of this film.
Manning, a rural town in Carroll County, Iowa, with a population of just 1,500. Without a doubt, It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. You might miss it though if you're looking for waterfalls, mountains, and sunset views that make it feel like God probably stays there. I almost missed it too the first time. But if you take a moment to look more closely and listen more intently, you'll notice that mountains are moved here. It's a community with stories more beautiful than any sunset. There's nothing ordinary about this place. And here's why.
Again, that's an excerpt from your documentary, Jack, 1500, the story of Manning. And it's so fascinating to watch a film like that where you're telling the story of this community from a completely fresh perspective. As a filmmaker, your ability to see things with new eyes here in the state of Iowa, that really lends something to the films you make. How do you think about your approach?
Yeah, I think it's a unique approach. And that's another reason that I felt like I have something to offer here in this state, because it's a fresh pair of eyes. It's a fresh perspective, right? Everybody takes everything for granted. They say, oh, we already know what we are. We already know what we're doing. But they don't understand the impact of if you tell that story. For example, with the Manning film, which I co-produced with a colleague of mine, who's based in Zimbabwe and he flies here and forth, and his name is Arnold, right? So when we really worked on this film, it was really about identifying that, look at this small town that is doing so well. How many other small towns are doing well? Right now, if you think about small towns, some small towns are dying because people are going to bigger cities and, they're looking for opportunities. But if they tell the story of how they've been able to create a very stable economy, how their schools function, how they create industry within that small town, how they create their own, internet, broadband and all of those things, and how they've got such an entertainment-packed, city for a small town, it just fascinates. So when I was having a conversation with them and we said, let's do this film, they were like, yeah, why not? We want to tell the story because we don't even realize that's what we're doing. So there's so many things like that happening around the state of Iowa that stories have not been told, and we just find that there's opportunities to really share this story. So the Manning film will be one of the first films that will be shown on Friday for those who want to come and just kind of explore. We're going to be sharing the story of Manning, and we're going to have a conversation around small towns, and we're just going to be talking about how it is, looking at it from a fresh perspective, from an African perspective, the things we've seen. And we really want even, economic leaders, people from other towns to just come in and just come and share their ideas, and I think it's going to be so much fun.
I am talking to Jack Chimbetete. He is the founder of Africa Live Network. Their very first Iowa African Film Festival is coming up August 6th through the 8th. Also with us today is Omar Love, and Omar Love is the founder of the Motherland Experience Festival, which will take place on August 8th from 10 to 7 p.m. at Western Gateway Park in Des Moines. And I'm bringing you back into the conversation, Omar, because I want to ask both of you this. There are so many Africans from many different countries on the continent that are now part of the diaspora, who live all around the world, all around the United States, all around the state of Iowa. I have friends who live in Iowa City who came from Sudan, who came from Congo. There are many Africans who are now a part of our community. What does it mean? And Omar, I'm going to let you go first. What do you think it means for people who are part of that Africa diaspora to have the Africa Live Network, an opportunity to connect with these films and podcasts and other high quality content coming from people with shared or similar backgrounds?
Well, I think it is very, very important because they are doing a great job by showcasing who we are. And the better they showcase who we are, the different aspect of who we are and different tradition and culture and ways of life that we have in Africa, the better it is for all of us within Des Moines. Because the better we understand each other, the better we live by each other or live together. So I think they are doing a very good job. And they are also bringing the community together as well, by connecting these stories and connecting these dots that are that are making people aware of who we really are and making people interested in our story and ways of life.
I can also imagine that for young African Iowans to see themselves represented in this content and also to plant the seeds of, oh, hey, you can also be a creator. That's got to be pretty powerful. Jack, how do you think about that?
So we even have some summer interns right now, and these are like some young Africans who, we collaborate with a lot of nonprofits to say, hey, how can we tell your story? And I think I mentioned, before that I work with Cultural. We're all about empowering people to tell their story and personal lived experiences. So part of it is we really want to encourage the storytelling aspect. Know your roots, know your history, know where you come from, your heritage, all of these things. So it's really a part of our mission to really invest in the community that way, and to collaborate with well wishers to say there is an opportunity to learn how to tell your story, to learn about your culture. There's some places I go to, even here in the U.S., and you talk to people from different cultures, and you ask them, do you know your culture? Some people think, oh, I don't have a culture. But really, if you really dig deeper, there's always a culture within a family, within a region, within a community, and that's part of what we really want to bring out for you to know your culture and understand where you come from. So that's really the aspect. And working with young people is one of my own personal passions. I love working with young people. I love inspiring young people, and I could do that any day. So that's part of what we want. We really want them to really feel a part of something, to really feel like they belong somewhere. And when they watch these films, they can reflect on themselves.
Omar, what brought you to Iowa?
It is the African population, and it is actually one of the reasons that led me into starting the Motherland Experience. Because I came to the United States when I was about 11, and I grew up within the United States, of course, but I felt left out due to not having a cultural representation where I was. So feeling that way, feeling like I was left out, I tend to look and search for places that I feel like maybe I belong, and then I seem to realize that the culture lays within me. And when I seem to realize that, then I also came to the realization that if I went through this stage of trying to figure out, where I belong, and the importance of being where you feel welcome or maybe appreciated, there should be or there must be a lot of people that are also going through the things, and especially the younger generation. So then that was where we came to the conclusion as the Motherland Experience to start this nonprofit, to be able to have this platform where we are all represented and we are all recognized, and also found a way to empower our people economically through these events that we are going to be hosting. Also on address the mental health stigma that we have within the African community and Black community as a whole, because we believe that most of us believe that if you happen to talk to a mental health representative, they believe that you are not strong enough, and it is a negative connotation that we have within our community that we are looking forward to address as well. And that's where that's where our collaborators, our partner, One Voice came in place, because they also stand for those things that we stand for, to bring the community together and showcase them to the world. And we just felt like it was no brainer to collaborate and become partners to serve our people.
The festival, the film festival, and the Motherland Experience, these are important events for Africans who are living in Iowa or nearby. They're important events for people with African heritage, but it seems like they are also exciting and important events for people who don't have that as part of their background. Jack, what do you hope Iowans who don't identify as African in any way will get out of this experience?
They are our primary, market target, actually, because we want them to come in and really have a learning experience. So for Africans themselves, it's a good place to reflect. For those who've been living here for a long time, it's a good place to say, hey, what's happening in Sudan? What's happening in Nigeria right now? Okay, these are some innovations. These are things I didn't know was happening in my own country, which is going to be fun. But for Iowans who have never traveled to Iowa, to Africa, who have never engaged, who have probably just, been in school or at work or, just kind of like maybe for some Iowans in deep rural Iowa who have never actually engaged with people from Africa, this would be a chance, a safe space to come in sit in a movie house and just learn and just explore. And then the good thing about it is we actually have some panels for discussions. Nice. So there'll be opportunities to talk and have a good time.
And then remember the food and the fun at the festival. So thank you. Thank you both so much for being here. Jack Chimbetete is the founder of Africa Live Network and the founder of the very first Iowa African Film Festival. It's coming up August 6th through the 8th in Des Moines, and the festival will culminate with the Motherland Experience Festival on August 8th. And I was speaking with Omar Love about that. This is Talk of Iowa. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. School is out for the summer, but Talk of Iowa Summer School is in session. This summer, teachers from across the state are sharing a favorite lesson with us for students of all ages. Alex Grapp is here today. Alex Grapp is a language arts teacher at Ames High School, and he's going to teach us how to love reading and how to inspire others to love reading. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Charity. Thanks for having me, and I will do my best.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. So, you teach 9th and 10th graders primarily. And
I do.
You see your main job is getting kids to enjoy reading. That's not every teacher's main priority. When did you realize that was your mission?
You know what? I think I really realized that when I started teaching. Before I kind of came into the classroom about 5 years ago, I had always really loved reading, right, myself. And I came in and realized pretty quickly that was not everybody's experience, right? Like there's a lot of teens who grow up, in places that maybe homes that don't have a ton of books, or in places where they don't see a lot of adults reading. And I realized pretty quickly that the impact that reading had on my life, it was something that I really wanted to share with kids. And the classroom was like the vehicle to make that happen for them.
So for a lot of teachers, getting students to read the books or stories that they're assigned is hard enough. What do you do to help your students engage? And we'll talk about reading for fun in a moment. But even with the material that you do assign, how do you get them to really dig in?
Yeah, so great question. And I feel like maybe the word to interrogate there is assign, right? Like I have a ton of choices in my classroom. So teens, I think, at least my students, thrive when they're given options. And one of kind of the core requirements of my classes is every day for the first 15 minutes at least of class, we have quiet reading time where kids get to bring in books that they want to read, books that maybe are in my classroom or in the school library or from the public library, bring them in and read them. And a huge part of the first part of all of my classes is figuring out, helping kids kind of develop habits of, how do you find books that you want to read? How do you know within a few pages, like, is this going to be a book that I'm going to enjoy? Is this going to be a book that is a little above my level for whatever reason? Is this a book that is going to be a push for me, like a challenge, but maybe a challenge that I'm ready for? So, it's about offering choice, but it's also about training some readerly habits from them.
So you create a culture of reading in your classroom. That's the idea. So tell me more about how you do that. You're offering choice, you're offering time. What else do you do?
Yeah. I also offer like really frank conversations about reading. I think for a lot of kids, reading in school especially becomes this um, kind of fraught exercise, right? That being a good or a bad reader is really close to kids' identity and how they see themselves as a person and as a student. And I think trying to like disentangle that a little bit with them, like showing them like texts that I struggle with, right? Or like things that maybe I picked up and started to read and realized like, oh my God, this is really dumb. And I'm not going to finish this book. I do not want to read this. Just being open with them about my own reading habits, and encouraging them to be open with me and with each other, about what reading has meant to them, how maybe reading has hurt them, in the past, and also about the joys that it's brought them, even if they're small joys. Getting them to see those is important.
Yeah, speaking of how it's fraught, I mean, obviously they have to take standardized tests with reading
Yeah.
comprehension, but then also sometimes the way that we teach books can suck all the fun out of them. And I'm just thinking about it. I'm a huge reader, but I remember a few experiences where I had teachers who got so into symbolism and sort of trying to make you read the way that they wanted you to read, that it really became so much less about the material and more about trying to jump through these hoops. So how do you take away that sort of fear and stress?
Yeah. I think it comes from building trust with the kids. So like during our quiet reading time, I'm either reading with them, right? Like I'm up at the front of the classroom, just like quietly reading my own free reading book, or I'm circulating around, checking in on them, like asking them, like, "Hey, are you liking this book? Like, how's this going? What's a confusing part for you?" And even though we're kind of whispering, like there's kids around us who are picking up on those conversations and realizing, like, oh, okay, so it's actually kind of normal to be confused, or it's actually normal to not like part of a book, but also kind of be interested in part of it. So that's a big part of it, right? Is just kind of hearing each other engage with the real work of reading. Another part, I think, is just kind of the order of operations. Like I never want my kids to walk away being like, oh, that class was fun, but like I didn't really learn anything. That would be awful. But I think if we can build a little bit of appreciation for reading, a little bit of, wow, okay, I see how I can be pulled in by novels or by nonfiction. Then I think the stuff like you were talking about, Charity, the symbolism, the theme analysis, and all this kind of stuff that can come after that. But I think it's not putting the cart before the horse here. Like let's build let's build some resilience, let's build some joy, and then kids are very, very willing to get into symbolism once they've really engaged with the text.
Giving kids the opportunity to engage with modern literature is also, I mean, I think again about the texts that I was taught when I was in school, and I loved many of them, but we didn't read anything that had been written in the last 50 years, when I was in school. So engaging with modern literature, is that part of what can make reading feel relevant to your students?
Yeah, and you know what, Charity, you're identifying a very important kind of sea change that's happened in English language arts education in the last, probably since you or I were in school, that young adult literature and also just kind of contemporary adult literature has really filtered into, I don't know, filter might be too soft. Like it has really become a new focus in a lot of English language arts classrooms. And I think it's a positive change. I'll say that I still have kids that want to read classics, right? Like they're like, hey, you know what? Like, cool, I can read Colleen Hoover on my own time, but like, do you have like Pride and Prejudice? Like what's going on with Jane Eyre? And that's great. I love that. I love that kids are still electrified by older texts. But you're absolutely right. Young adult novels, in particular, can be some of like very complex narratively, but also stylistically. I'm thinking of books like Jason Reynolds' Long Way Down, that is a novel in verse, but plays with like these huge themes around guilt and revenge, and it's just incredible. So I feel like some parents, adults, I think, worry sometimes that English education is being watered down by engaging with these texts in school. But I think the opposite's true, that they are they're narratively as rich as some of the greats,
It's an understatement that some parents worry about this.
Yeah.
Also, we know that some people really worry that students will be exposed to things that those people don't want them to be exposed to through literature. We've had a big movement to get certain books out of the classrooms, out of schools in recent years. Kids, of course, are grappling with real life issues, and some kids are dealing with some really tough things. Having that kind of representation in a book can be really powerful. It can even help them actually work through real world problems. How do you walk that line if a student needs a book that isn't a book that you are supposed to be recommending? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Boy, with care, but it's, in Iowa in particular, and some other states around the nation, teachers are being put in an increasingly difficult position of kind of being moral arbiters for kids. And I really think, this is my personal belief, that I think kids are really capable of choosing what they'd like to engage with and what they're ready for. I've had kids that will start a book that I think is incredibly tame, right? Even let's just talk about something that American culture is a little more okay with, like violence, right? That is a fairly violent book, right? And I might warn them and say hey, this one gets a little violent, so just be prepared. And they'll say, okay, that's fine, I'll try it. And I've had kids decide to put things down because they feel oh yeah, that is a little too violent, or whatever it is for them, right? So number one, I really believe that we have to trust kids to make decisions for themselves. They're young adults, and I think they are craving for adults to treat them like that. I also think you're absolutely right that kids are living real lives. They're not always as sheltered, I think, as culture would lead us to believe. You're right. They're grappling with real questions about the world, and literature is a safe space for kids to be able to engage with those problems, think about them in their own lives, and make their own decisions. And I don't know, if I'm a parent, that's what I would want for my kids, is to be able to engage with big questions, to think critically about them, and make their own intelligent decisions about them.
So you may be limited in books that you can recommend to students, but in your classroom, you make it a welcoming space so the students can bring whatever they want to read to school?
That's totally right. Yep. And I also just want to preface, they're always talking to me about what they're reading, right? There's nothing that's I don't know, they're not sneaking things in or anything like that. But it is I think what makes it powerful for kids to bring in things that they're interested in, big questions that they're grappling with, and then be able to talk to me and their peers about them, safe places for big questions about the world. I don't know. I really can't overstate. I trust them to make their decisions.
I'm sure you have students who come into your classroom who don't think that they're interested in reading for fun. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about a success story, a time when you have seen a student really love to read, learn to love to read in your classroom?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of these, and I think a lot of it comes just from trust and freedom. One kid I'm thinking about in particular came in to my 9th grade class, and he was pretty frank with me, which I appreciated. He told me that he couldn't really remember the last time he'd read a full book, and that he probably wasn't going to start this year. Right? You know what I mean? Like it's like. Well, like, yeah, we'll save that.
You've
Mr.
got
Grapp,
your
but
ideas,
okay.
Mr. Grapp.
Yeah,
Whatever.
right. Yeah, exactly. So my habit is just to go pull a giant stack of books from my little classroom library that I think might interest kids, right? And among those books that I grabbed for this guy was Kami Garcia's Beast Boy, which was part of her Teen Titans graphic novel series, which is kind of geared for young adults. He grabbed that one. I was like, just take it home, see what you think. And he came back, gosh, I think it was the next day or the day later, and was like, hey, do you have the next one? I'm done. And I was like, yeah, let's get you going. And he like blasted through like the 4 or 5 that I had, and every day after that came in checking to see if I'd gotten the next one yet. And I was, on the line with Amazon representatives, like, is there any way we can get that sooner? Oh my God. And so that was that. I mean, that kind of thing is, I'm really proud of this, is actually pretty common in my classroom, like where kids come in that are sort of sworn off of reading and find something that they really love. And gosh, even if it's like Teen Titans, like, I mean, that's huge, That's a huge story that they can now tell themselves. Like, yeah, I read.
Right. So we've only got about a minute left. I think there are a lot of adults who either never learned to love to read or forgot that they love to read. So do you have advice for anyone listening right now about how to get in touch with that joy of exploration again?
So I remember after I got out of school, I was so burnt out on like reading smart things, and I just had to go back to like cozy mysteries for about a year. You know what I mean? I was just like, I need to be done with like reading complex things. So that's my idea, is like, hey, take a step back, try to remember some things that you liked, even if they feel a little silly. And go back and start there. You'll find yourself into some more complex things really quickly.
When I'm feeling burnout, I'll read a young adult novel.
There you go. See? Yep. Yeah.
And then I can read whatever I want after that.
They're good at grabbing you.
They are. And we are living in the golden age of YA fiction, I think. Alex, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you, Charity.
Alex Grapp is a language arts teacher at Ames High School. We are looking for more teachers to share one of their favorite lessons this summer. You can nominate yourself or tell us about a great teacher you know. Email talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Talk of Iowa is a production of IPR News. This show is produced by Danny Gear with technical support from Nev Kelly and Tony Saravia, and a little bit of production assistance from Chase Abner. I'm Charity Nebbe. This is Talk of Iowa.